good, everybody? We are back with another episode of Something Epic. This month, I am very, very excited because I get to talk to one of my favorite folks in gaming, somebody who I have been dying to talk to for a long time. We have lead designer on Rumbleverse, Adam Hart. Thank you so much for being here with me on Something Epic, talking about Rumbleverse. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I am so excited and so hyped for this game. You have no idea. I have been thinking about all the ways that I can get closer to this universe, this game. Yeah. For the folks who, you know, have not been well versed in the game and haven't had a chance to check out some of the gameplay and betas, give the folks a little bit of a synopsis of what the game is and what Rumbleverse is bringing to the world.
Yeah, Rumbleverse is big dumb fun. It is a 40-player melee-focused battle royale game, and I know the eyes roll when you say battle royale these days, but this is a really, really different take on what that really is, right? Obviously, this kind of same core rule is there. You put a bunch of people, 40 people in this case, into a shrinking ring, and they battle it out until there's one person left standing. You get the idea, but no guns. Sounds like a small wrinkle, but it's actually a massive wrinkle. Everything about how a battle royale works and flows and feels and the emotions it brings to you are completely different when you're next to people and you're not getting killed by like a 6-pixel dot in the distance, and you're like, I don't even know where that came from. It's been really, really fun to work on, and we've seen people who come from all kinds of different backgrounds and genres and favorite games play this and say, I don't know about all this, and then they get their hands on it and they're like, oh my god, I can't stop thinking about it, I gotta play it again. And I'm the same way. I've been working on this game for 3.5 years, and this is the only game I like to play these days, and I've been playing it a lot. But yeah, it's definitely you got to try it, and it's free to play, so you got to try it.
There are a lot of pivot points for that part of the conversation, but I want to go back to the beginning because I think one of the things that I love to kind of share with our audiences has been about what does it look like when a game is in its infancy, when it's really starting to come into the space. But it all starts with a pitch. It all starts with here's the idea.
Sure.
How did this wild idea get pitched to you in terms of, again, a wrestling battle royale?
Sometimes, I've been in the industry for about 10 years. Sometimes a pitch is very meticulous, and it's like, we have this vision and we're going to write all these documents, and we write this awesome pitch, and we know exactly what it is we're trying to make and what need we're trying to fill. And sometimes a pitch is just a joke. And Dive Kick was like that, right? Like when we did Dive Kick, it was just me and some friends in my living room, and it was 3 a.m. and we were all dead tired playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3 all night, and I was like, what if there was a game called Dive Kick where all you could do was dive and kick? It was just a stupid joke. And then my friend was like, I could make that, and then we did. Honestly, Rumbleverse's inception was similar to that. It was just kind of we should do something goofy, we should do a wrestling battle royale or whatever that was set at a bar. That's the story, at least. But from my perspective, it's a little different. My perspective was Adam Boyce is visiting the Orlando studio. He calls me into one of the meeting rooms randomly. He's like, Adam, check this out. What do you think? Wrestling battle royale. Wouldn't that be hilarious? And I was like, yeah, that'd be really funny. And, we kind of riffed a little bit on how fun it would be to maybe suplex somebody off a roof, or, backyard wrestling fantasies, stuff like that. I used to do backyard wrestling when I was in my late teens. So I have a little experience there, getting powerbombed through steel chairs and stuff.
What?
Yeah, I have video of it. I can prove it.
Oh my god.
Maybe I'll send that to you so you can B-roll it in.
Hey, if you have that B-roll, I want it so bad.
Anyway, I leave the meeting room, and I'm thinking, oh, that Adam Boyce, what a jokester. Uh-huh. What a goofy game that would be. But I'm also thinking, people don't make games with dozens of players and melee together for a reason. It is maybe impossible to do it well. Many people have tried, and it rarely feels right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's technologically very difficult to accomplish. And, my gut feeling was like, we probably shouldn't try this. And then a week or so later, Adam hits me up and he's like, we signed it. We're doing it.
The thing I
So
love about that is I
yeah,
know Adam. I've known Adam for so long now that he gets this like mad scientist look on his face when he has an
yeah,
idea that he's like, this is the thing that we're going to go with and is really excited about.
yep.
Continue the story because I knew you were
No, yeah,
finishing up.
yeah. I mean, that was basically the end of the story. He basically said, "We signed it. We're doing it. Let's figure out what the hell we're making and how we're gonna do it." And we have some of the best in the business as far as net play is concerned on the tech side over at Iron Galaxy. Ramon has done our lead network stuff on Killer Instinct and Dive Kick and a bunch of other things. So if anyone was going to really take a swing at this and try to make something that felt great, it was going to be him and his team.
Mm.
And that was what we did. We kind of put pen to paper. We focused on that core fantasy of elbow dropping or suplexing somebody off of a skyscraper, and all the pieces fell into line after that. It's like you asked the question: if I want to choke slam somebody off a skyscraper, how do I get to the top of it? So then you start to realize, oh, we're making a platformer. This is a 3D platformer at its heart. We're going to be bouncing around and climbing things, and once you realize that, then some of the other pieces start to fall together about like how the characters move, how they might need to interact, and put that all to paper. And then you have to start building net play first, because if you build gameplay first and then try to shove net play into it, you will fail. So we start building net play, and then the design team worked really hard to try to build gameplay that worked with what net play could handle. So there's a lot of conceits we had to make. We couldn't build something traditional that felt exactly like the fighting games you've played in the past. It has its own feel and its own rules, not necessarily because we wanted to do it that way, but because we had to do it that way to make sure that it would even work online. But the result has been something that feels incredibly fresh. Fighting game players are like, oh, I understand this. But players who don't come from fighting games are like, oh, this is fresh enough that I'm not, in over my head immediately.
Yeah. I love the nugget that you started off there with the idea of, because I've never heard that before in terms of when you're building a game kind of similar in this vein. You might have Rumbleverse your chair, suplex your chair, but the idea of like, oh, we have to build the net play first and then build the other layers on that is really, really profound, because I would have thought of you totally do that in the opposite way and say, okay, we understand net code, so we'll get there at an eventual point. But what are the kind of small, they're not small because they're technically difficult, but what are some of the challenges when it comes to a game like this on the net code side? What are some of the things that you're definitely trying to figure out and work around?
I'll try to avoid getting too technical, but when you're doing like a rollback based peer-to-peer fighting game, so that means I'm running the game, you're running the game, we're directly connected, there's no server, there's no intermediary. It's trying to keep our game synced, but it's letting me act immediately. So it's kind of telling your end what I did a couple frames ago and letting it catch up. And there's a lot of like tricks there to hide latency. You can't get rid of latency. Latency is a truth. It takes time for the signal from my game to get to yours and back, period. So what can we do to hide it is always the question. But when you do something that's more than a handful of players, you have to involve a server. So now instead of me sending information to you as fast as possible, I got to send it to a server, and now the server sends it to you, and then you send it back to the server and back to me. So now it's taking even longer to get to me, in theory. How much longer depends on where we both live, but in theory, it's always longer than a peer-to-peer connection would be. And now we have 40 people all doing that at once, and I need to get the data of what 40 people are doing instead of one person. And now we need a source of truth, because we can't just say, oh, our games will try to stay synced and reconcile each other and police each other. What will happen here is the server will be the source of truth. And if one of the clients disagrees with the server will correct it and be like, nope, this character was actually over here. Do this instead. So the kind of the non-technical summary I'll give you is they do a lot of tricks in shooting games, right? Yeah. I'm shooting at your character, blah, 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 blah. It looks like on my screen I'm hitting you, but on your screen you already went behind a corner. You start taking a little damage on your side because on my side it looked right, and the server was like, yeah, okay, we'll give it to him, right? Yeah. You take a little damage, you're like, okay, he got me, whatever. It's bullets, you don't go into hit stun. It doesn't look that weird. They're just kind of hiding it and favoring the attacker because that's what feels better. Switch that into melee. Yeah. I take a swing at you, right? Big old punch. And on my screen, you're right there. Boom, I hit you. But on your screen, you're behind a corner. Now on your screen, I've completely whiffed you, and your character's going into hit stun. It looks insanely bad, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
feels terrible, and it makes everyone frustrated and want to quit. So that is the technical hurdle. It's like, how do we, in a good enough way, make the attacks have enough time to tell the server they're supposed to happen, tell the opponent they're supposed to happen, and back, and get those characters to like touch reasonably so that neither player is frustrated or upset by the situation. And that is a probably 2-hour GDC talk an engineer from Iron Galaxy Studios will do someday.
I am dying to hear that talk, because that's the stuff that when I, as a person who's straddling both of those lanes, right, of being in the game development side and then also being a person who's doing this kind of work and having played the game, hearing you talk about it in that way, I was like, oh wow, like that is so different.
It's really
because
weird.
Your expectations are so different in the way that your brain works. You kind of have an idea like of how long your arm is in relation to your character's body and how those things kind of interplay in that way.
Yep.
And then it comes down to the moves that you wind up picking up, the wrestling moves you wind up picking up, and some of that stuff. Is there and I feel like you found a really happy medium and balance right now. Like the game, when I've played it, feels really good in that way of like the expectations I have to hit or grab someone feels in line with what my hopes were going to wind up being.
That's great. That's great to hear. That's the mission, right? Is latency is real. We can't do anything about it, but we can use interesting techniques to try and hide it from you most of the time. Obviously, occasionally something's going to happen. It's the internet, but
yeah. So when you're programming in the technical bits to make the things work, there's another layer that feels like it's always within every game that's kind of like this, and it's a crappy term because no one has really gotten a good name for it, but it's like that game feel.
Sure.
It's a dumb term. Like no one knows what to actually give that term a real name. But that's also a layer of Rumbleverse too, where it feels like, maybe even the aesthetic lends to adding some to that. What are your thoughts about like how do you also kind of build that into the minutia of the battles and the systems that kind of under? I
mean, underneath all of the stuff you see on top, like the character animations and sound effects and VFX and blah blah blah, you are playing as a small capsule, right? If I removed all the graphics, you would still play as a small capsule. You'd be able to, scoot around the world and attach to buildings and climb them and attack and all this stuff. You wouldn't see any of those things, but you could still do them. So, the game feel stuff really all comes from controller responsiveness, which is really hard to do in online games because if you let players control their character immediately, then you don't have as much time to get the signal to the server and back and all that kind of stuff. But it also is animation, sound effects, VFX, making sure that all the things you're doing feel legible. So it's really clear, making sure they have the right amount of weight. And that comes from getting the anticipation right. So when your character's about to do that long jump and vault off a building, you got to make sure they squash down and bend their legs just right. So it feels like they really vault into it. They get a lot of momentum. Same with the attacks, making sure those anticipations look heavy and legible, making sure those hit frames look really heavy and legible, and then big crunchy sound effects and VFX, screen shake. Like there's just a lot of elements that go in to make something feel great. And it's not as like esoteric as you might think, but it does. It's like a lot of people coming together to make something feel great. It's not something like I do or something one other person does. It's dozens of people all working on one thing together before it finally becomes great.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like, I also want to hear the GDC talk about like what readability looks like in Rumbleverse, because we have we have that conversation a lot when it comes to other shooters or hero fighters or stuff like that. Like you're like, oh, that silhouette means that, but it feels like in Rumbleverse, it's more about, oh, I saw the silhouette or I saw a move happen down the map. I need to back up off that person because I know what they're capable of. That's an interesting. I'd love to hear that conversation there. But one of the other parts about the game that I absolutely adore and love, besides, of course, as a big wrestling fan, huge wrestling fan, is this feels like a fighting game. It feels so much like a fighting game in the one-to-one battles when you're having them often enough. How much of your fighting game background and all the work you've done in that space, how much is that like fully inform, the way that give and take happens within Rumbleverse? How did that
I
kind of
mean,
play?
it certainly helps to have that experience. But I do try to come into each new project with fresh eyes and figure
Sure.
out, I'm not like a traditionalist. I'm not going to sit around and be like, it has to be this way because it used to be this way in some other
Yeah.
game. We're really trying to discover the identity of this new thing and figure out what makes it shine in its own way. And it's a 3D platformer brawler. It's not very similar to Killer Instinct or something that's
Right.
two players in a shoebox diorama trapped on a screen together until one of them is dead, right? So a lot of things just about it change, and I think the biggest thing that I think is really interesting is the stamina system.
Yeah.
We, instead of going with like cooldowns or whatever, we're just like, hey, you have stamina. You can do whatever you want with it. You can dodge roll, cost stamina. You can dash, cost stamina. Your special moves cost stamina. It's on you to manage it. But what it does is it creates a very non-forced ebb and flow. So, like, I can do a ton of offense on you in a traditional fighting game. I could trap you in the corner, and I could do offense on you until you're dead, forever. But in Rumbleverse, I can do a limited amount of offense on you because I will run out of stamina, and then it's your turn for sure. So it's on me to naturally the game's not forcing me to. I can choose when and where to do this, but it's up to me to kind of naturally give you spots to wiggle out. Because if I don't, I will run out of stamina. And not only will you wiggle out, but if you hit me back, I'll stamina break and you'll get to obliterate me. So it is a really nice system because when you're new, you can ignore it and you're just like, oh man, stamina, I'm out of it again. I'll just wait a second or I'll hold block and regenerate it. But as you get better and better, it becomes this very non-technical thing. It's not like about hard inputs or combos or whatever. It's just like when you do stuff and what you do, it's really important. And the stamina management is a huge aspect of that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that pulls this away from traditional fighting games is that it has that ebb and flow and that surprise factor. And it's really interesting.
And it feels like a wrestling match. It feels like, in that
It
way
can,
of
yeah.
like there are ebbs and flows, and you're kind of waiting to read your opponent in a different way that is different than fighting games. And
Right.
in most battle royales, you're never reading your opponent. You're
Right.
actually just like, oh, I am seeing them, I am shooting
And I'm
them,
shooting them.
and I
Yes.
am shooting them. There's not a lot of strategy in there.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that within Rumbleverse, like, a couple of different things, and I love you talked about the stamina levels because the power up stuff also, I didn't really grok until my last rounds in the
Sure.
last open beta that happened, and I was like, oh wait a minute, so there's like a stamina boost, a health boost, and there's another one, there's a
Power.
power boost, right?
Attack power, yeah.
And
Those are
I
your
was
arms, your
picking,
core, and your legs.
yeah, right, and I was picking up everything, and I was
Yeah.
consuming everything, and I was
Yeah, whatever
like,
you can find.
not whatever I was finding on the ground, I was like, oh, that, grab that, ooh, grab that. Ooh. But and then I was like, oh, I can't pick up any more of these because I had maxed out my meter.
Right.
But I didn't pay attention to the fact that you can spec out your character in round
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, I want to be a powerhouse. I want to be a glass cannon. Let me grab as many power level ups and then use those as opposed to health or stamina and stuff. And then I was like, holy crap, I've been playing this wrong for the time that I was here. Wrong.
I wouldn't say wrong, but yeah.
Air quotes wrong, right? But I was like, oh, I didn't know that was also a mechanic. How did that play into, design as well? Because now it feels like you can kind of live a little bit, within that wrestling world, a persona alongside that by specking out your character in mid match.
Yeah, I think it goes back to our initial conversations about what this game is, and we were like, "What is a battle royale?" At its core, it's a roguelike. It's a roguelite, I should say.
Yeah.
It is an action game in which you don't get to keep your progression. You spawn in with nothing. You get whatever you can get, and you try to win. And if you do, yay! And if you don't, boo. But you start over again next game, right? It's just It's over and over and over again. So the really cool aspects that attach people to roguelikes are, the random loot and the synergies you can find with different, perks or abilities. And we really wanted to do something like that here where, between the stat system where you're kind of specking out your character and the perk system that you're getting from doing damage, the different special moves and weapons, that there are ways to find interesting synergies and create a build, right? And that randomness keeps you coming back, because you might have a favorite, but you're not going to get it every time. So you're going to have to improvise. And improvisation is also like a really huge part of the skill set that I think is fun to test. But also, I guess wrestling is also a lot about improvisation, right?
Yeah.
It's an improv performance. And I think that that's just a really cool thing about the game. So when you're new, you can just eat whatever stat pods you find, ignore it, just fill up the slots. That's more important than anything. Yeah. But as you get better, you can start to, focus more on that and be like, oh, I just got this special move that pairs really well with stamina because it's a move that I'm going to press a lot but doesn't do a lot of damage. So maybe I'll build legs this match. And then you can start to look out for that. And as you learn the city as well, you'll get faster and better at finding crates and even getting opportunities to get stat pods. A new player, I'll see their match wrap-up screen. They opened 8 crates that game. Some of the more veteran players are opening 30 crates in a game. That's a lot more chances to find the things that you want. And learning just how to keep moving and keep finding crates and smashing them and then looking for what you want and being quick, like, oh, I don't need any of that. On to the next one, and it just gets deeper and deeper from there as you kind of involve the perks and the special moves and everything. And you can find all kinds of neat stuff that synergizes really well and kind of puts you on that emotional roller coaster of, wow, this build isn't working out. And then you win the match anyway. You're at a low and then you're at a really big high. Or, oh man, this build is killer. There's no way I'm going to lose. You're way up here and then you lose. And then you're out.
I've had both of those experiences.
Yeah.
And they've both been great.
That roller coaster of emotions over the 12 to 15 minute match is really important. It's not flat. There's a lot happening. There's a lot to be excited about or mad about at any given moment. And it just keeps you really hooked.
I think one of the things that I actually appreciate the most about the game is the tactic of run away. Run away is smart. Yeah, disengage with the fight. Like I've been, because the thing I appreciate the fact that, like, a lot of people get mad when it comes to battle royale games when you get third partied and third party. This game is like fourth partied, fifth party.
Oh yeah, like, people clump up, man. It's brawl, like, yeah. Let me get in there.
To be on a swivel all the time. But like, disengaging is a real tactic, and being able to run away from a fight, regroup, rebuild your stamina back up is a really smart tactic to kind of employ.
More than just a tactic, disengaging is fun.
Yeah.
You don't get to play a 3D platformer where people chase you or you chase people. Like, that's not a thing that exists. This is the only game I've played that's like that. So disengaging, whether you're the cat or the mouse in that situation, is just like, it's legitimately fun to chase somebody, and it's legitimately fun to try and shake somebody who's chasing you. I just really like both aspects of that. So when I run away, I'm not like, oh, I feel sad. I'm just like, oh, might have some fun here as I try to, lose somebody, and find a spot where they leave me alone so that I can heal up and all that. The other aspect of it that I think is really cool is, because it's such a personal game, so up close, you can recognize people's, choices and body type and outfit and everything. And you and I might fight for a minute and neither of us is KO'd, and then I run away. Yeah. But I know what you look like. Yeah. And I can tell what you look like from pretty high up. Like, they're pretty legible. And I may be mad about it, right? And you don't know that. You're like, oh, well, he got away. But little do you know, I've abandoned winning, and I'm just hunting you the rest of the match. That happens. Like, people just want their revenge. And you have to manage that relationship with each player as well as you play. It's like, should I let them go? Because if I do, maybe they're out to get me the rest of the match, and they don't care if they lose as a result. They'll do whatever it takes to take me down. But it also kind of breeds stories. So that even happening means you have a story to tell in a video or to a friend or whatever, which, is really cool. Those are little relationships you form, kind of tell a narrative between you and another player, maybe over the 3 minutes you encountered each other in a 15-minute match, which is pretty unique.
It is really telling how many times I have done that. And I was like, who am I as a human being? Have I changed? have I changed who I am?
You just want to ruin somebody else's day. It's fine.
Oh yeah, there's been 2 scenarios that I really, really remember, and one was I'd gotten away or thought I got away, and was like, "Oh, I'm gone. I'm ghost. I left that fight. I feel good about it. I was almost dead. Now I'm kind of like back to reasonable health." And that cat jumped off of a building. I have no clue how he tracked me down, where he
Yep.
found me. I stopped for a minute to get my breath, and I got like just elbow dropped from God knows where. And
Yeah.
but it was those moments that I do come back to when it comes to like, oh, so the game within the game within the game. There are so many versions of that within Rumbleverse that I really appreciate, and I feel like that opens it up, like you said, to having so many different kinds of players within the ecosystem, which I'm really excited and happy about. I'd love to hear your thoughts about like, you know, how you all thought about making this a game that is going to have a much kind of broader appeal and larger kind of, you know, base to kind of play around in when it came to kind of design or thought processes around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really all just about making something that is really approachable. So, you know, the amount of information you need to learn to enjoy the game is very, very low. We've done every single beta so far without any type of tutorial. The finished game does have a playground mode you can go to learn stuff. So you'll have a more safe place to learn things if that's what you like. But we haven't really seen people struggling. Within a couple matches in a live fire environment, they got the idea. They're doing fine. And then, you know, 3 or 4 matches later, they go, blocking seems pretty good. Maybe I should start doing that, right? It just kind of comes naturally. And a big part of that is not only that the information you need to enjoy the game is low, the comedy in losing is kind of high, but also you are the same character as every other player. Literally everything you see somebody else do, you can do it too. So everyone is teaching you as you play without having to teach you. And it's not like you see somebody do some, you know, 27 hit combo and you're like, oh, I don't know, you're going to go online and look up the notation or whatever. You just see a dude wall jump and you're like, oh, I'll jump next to it. Oh, I can wall jump too. Okay. And it just makes sense, right? It builds on itself really naturally. And just making sure that the game is really focused around testing a player's improvisation and testing a player's ability to just play smart and read their opponents or manipulate their opponents, not testing execution, not really testing, you know, oh, can you input these fancy things? And I think that just really opens the door to a lot of people. They don't see people doing things that intimidate them, right? Somebody does something to you and you don't go, oh, I'll never be able to do that. Somebody does something to you and your reply is, I'm going to try that. That looks easy. And I didn't think of that. I'm going to add that to my game. So everyone's always just kind of growing as they play. We've seen pretty incredible success with it being a 3D platformer and that you can disengage in the studio, right? We've had a lot of people work on the game who have said, Adam, I don't play fighting games. I'm not going to be good at this one. And 2 months later, they're one of the best people in the office, right? They're just playing the game. You know, they're just having a good time. And because they're having fun, they're learning. And because they're learning, they're getting stronger. One of the top players in the office for a while was a Spyro speedrunner named Phil. And not a fighting game guy. His movement was too crispy, man. I couldn't catch him. Couldn't get away from him. Just really evasive. And then he would go, oh yeah, but I suck at the combat. But he didn't. He didn't suck at the combat. He figured it out over a couple months and then he was great at it. And that just seems to be how it happens for everybody. They're having a good enough time that the learning just comes naturally. And I really do think that's the key is, you know, being able to laugh off your losses, play with friends, share information. The duos mode is great. You'll get to try that soon.
Oh, I'm so hyped for that.
Yeah. And just having an environment that, you know, if you want to keep coming back, you're just going to get better. That's just how things work for human beings. Right.
Yeah, and I love small things like you know, the circle doesn't focus on the same part of the map every time you go into
improv,
which I think is also really important because that changes the idea around POIs and points of interest. It changes that a little bit for the game and it makes that also really fresh. I remember being in spots where you have a lot of the skyscrapers, so I'm like, ooh, I need to get up top really quick to make sure I have high ground and able to get some really good loot. And then there's in times when I've been like over onto the sides of the map and I'm just like, oh, this is kind of lower ground. There's not a lot of places to hide and do all that kind of stuff. So
very different feeling.
Even that part of the mechanic feels really good. We're almost out of time.
Sure.
And I got to ask you, favorite wrestler, because you know we're talking about a wrestling game. We're talking about a game that wrestling is the motif. Who's some of your favorites of all time?
I was a huge Scott Hall fan. I actually went to high school on Halloween dressed as Scott Hall with a fake beard kind of painted on and everything. I flicked toothpicks at all my teachers. They did not enjoy that. It was actually a high school teacher of mine, a social studies teacher named Stephen Rieger, who got me into wrestling. I thought
Yeah.
wrestling was really stupid back then. He was like, he kind of explained to me why it was cool. There are very good videos about why wrestling is cool out there that you can watch. I'm not going to go through that stuff, but I started watching, and this was right around the WCW, NWO era. Like NWO had just become a thing, and that was good TV for quite a while. Favorite of mine for a while is also a big Kevin Nash fan. And Chris Jericho is another of one of my favorites from back then. But I got to go with Scott Hall. Like nobody does a goofy sell like him. And seeing him overreact to something is just, I don't know. That's genuine comedy. It's funny stuff. Rest in peace.
I loved him. Rest in peace to Scott Hall, man. One of the best to ever do it. I just remember, God, him coming out those first couple matches when he was like starting it out, and I was like, who in the hell is this dude?
Yeah.
Just like captured a room in a great way.
I fell out of it after that. I didn't watch a lot. For like the last 15 years, I haven't watched a lot, but I still have it in my heart.
Same. I'm watching here and there when the big shows come through. I kind of watch it just to like peek in and stuff like that. Oh my goodness, Adam, thank you so much for being here and rocking me on Something Epic. Give the folks at home, because this will be out before launch, when things are dropping, how they'll be able to snag the game and where they'll be able to play.
Rumbleverse will launch on August 11th, 2022. It will be on Epic Game Store on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. Free to play. The Battle Pass will launch on August 18th, 1 week after launch. And you'll be able to play solo and duo modes at launch. So definitely bring a friend and try that out.
I would love it. I would love to get some tag team games in with you. It would be a lot of fun. Let's do a ride along. We'll teach people how to play and get the.
That sounds really fun.
Let's definitely schedule that out and get stuff together. I'm so happy that the game is coming out soon. I am definitely going to be streaming the hell out of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got to see if I can get a Kaka Beware shirt into the game somehow. We got to figure out how to make it happen in a real way. Adam, thank you again for being here. Everybody at home, this has been Something Epic. We'll see you next month with another dope interview, dope show, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Much love. Thank you, everybody, for checking out Something Epic. If you had a blast watching this, then please make sure you're subscribing and checking out more of our content here on our YouTube channel. Thank you again to our friends at Epic Games for letting us be a part of their family and a part of their Epic Partner Program. Please make sure you're using our code SpawnOnMe at checkout when you're going into the EGS store and buying your favorite new game. We'll see you next month with a new episode of Something Epic. Until then, peace.